when bad things happen to you or things don't work out as you think they should, you make a double bogey, whatever, however you want to think about it. You can take it one of two ways. You can, kick rocks, get mad, blame other people. You can do a lot of things, or you can just deal with it and say, what am I going to do next? What's my next step then? What am I going to do from here? And I'm glad I chose that route. And I had the biggest chip on my shoulder in the world to make that team. I said, what do you mean? So little things like I certainly outworked everyone on the team. At the time, Tristan Tree had 3 little holes. Poor Sean Airy probably got sick of kicking me out of there, and Bob Janes and the crew. But that was for the team only, and I would zip there after class and start practicing because I wanted them to see me working and I wanted them to kick me out. And so then at the same time, just adjacent to that was this free driving range. And I wanted to practice right next to them because I wanted them to see me practicing. And by the way, to anyone on the call, some of you are going to nod your heads. Picking up your own golf balls is the best thing for your golf game. When you have about 20 in your shag bag and you're going to hit them out there, you really pay attention because you need 20 golf balls to keep going. So I would just practice in this range and shag my own balls and, put my shag bag at different distances and worked on my short game. I made sure that I teed off in front of the team on their Saturday morning round. Like I would tee off at 7:30. I would stay later than them. Like I literally was figuring out ways I could get their attention and show them that I wanted their job. And so I did this. It's the hardest I've ever worked on my game. And Sean Airy gave me, wasn't my first formal lesson, but it was early on because I was very self-made, Golf Channel made. And if you look at my swing now, you'll realize it's homemade. Sean Airy gave me a fantastic lesson. Sean gave me just such a good golf lesson that I still think about to this day. And now we get to, when I interact with him, we kind of laugh about it. But I really got pretty darn good. And it was a different golf course, different environment. It was longer, it was more windy. Like there was so many reasons why I got better. And I realized oh gosh, I got to play in certain tournaments. So I started competing in the US Open qualifiers, US Am qualifiers, OGA championships. And I started doing really well. I had a US Am qualifier where I shot 68 in the opening round and I was leading. And I'm beating a kid from UNLV in my group. And you could have pinched me and said, Patrick, you're leading the U.S. Amateur qualifying at the OGA course. I took a 15 in the second round. I shot in the low 80s for my second 18. Like the pressure got to me. But there were a lot of little things. Like I qualified, for the Oregon match play and the Oregon Amateur at that time. So it didn't quite make it into match play, but qualified to get there and got through and got pretty close. And I'm recognizing that I'm beating a lot of the players that are on the Oregon State team in these events. And the coach came up to me later. I think he talked to me. We were at Portland Golf Club. I showed up a couple days earlier and I don't know who the pro was at the time, but they were so nice to me. I said, I'm here. I really want to do well. Can I use the short game area? I have no business asking this question. And they were so nice to me. Of course, you can practice here. It was way too generous. They were way too good to me. Just another track record of PGA.
It may have been Chris Mitchell.
It could have been, but it's just another example of PGA professionals understanding, being so kind and opening their arms to me. And man, I worked hard, and it was at that tournament when I didn't quite get into match play where he came up to me and said, gosh, I really look forward to you trying out for the team next year. It was kind of like, if you try out, we're going to find a spot for you because I recognize what you've been doing. But I, at that point, was over it. I had done what I had come to do, and I had I realized that I can play with these guys. I can hang.
Yeah.
I don't need. It was weird. Monte, I just kind of internally said I don't need that anymore. And
if you don't mind, I was one of the things that I would say takeaways there is The interesting part is that what's weird is like, again, if the coach was there, he was sitting here in one of these other screens, and I would hope that they would say, maybe I learned something from that. Maybe I realized that, Patrick Oropallo, and this is what I'm thinking, is he was kind of a Danny Ainge guy, or he was a gritty guy. And I would have loved to have that person on my team. And I'll bet you that you would have been very impactful. She said non-impact, which is pretty unkind. You really think about it, and disheartening, but you would have been impactful because think about it now. That's probably in some ways I'm a big fan of Steph Curry, as you know. And they call him the petty king. He's like, his whole entire life is basically what you just described is, I'm too small. I'm not strong enough. I'm not fast enough. I'll show you. And he does show you. Like, you do not want to make that guy annoyed on a basketball court because he will humiliate you. Even though you're much bigger than him, much stronger than him, because he's just skilled. And I see that with you in a good way. You don't try to humiliate people, but you basically, it drove you to, and I can see why you'd be over that, but you think about a missed opportunity from that coach. He did not take advantage of that grit. And because if you were on that team, that would have been a huge cultural infusion, because there was probably people who had a lot more talent or a lot more gifting and access, and they'd had all the coaching and they had all that stuff you need to get there. But they took it for granted. They were entitled. They didn't really work that hard. And you show up, and the coach could have pointed and said, "Look at Patrick. Look how much he's getting out of what his cards."
Yeah. I came out of absolute left field. There's no way this person would have known who I am or was, and I'm from small town nowhere. So there were a lot of things that, not like looking back, like I don't think that they made an incorrect decision. But I'm just proud. I called it a defining moment. I am proud of the way I handled that moment in adversity, and it's really shaped kind of how I approach. It's just a part of who I am, and it certainly shapes the way I approach things later in my career.
So you were kind of over being on the OSU golf team at that point, and they missed out on you, but you became somebody different. And then what happened?
Well, over the summer, my plan was I didn't know what my plan was, if I was going to stay at Oregon State or go to SOU or take a year off. I'm of the age, and I just didn't really know what I was going to do. I know I wanted to golf. I'm thinking that maybe I'll, try to do some mini tour stuff. Like, when you're that age, just there's so many options. The world is yours. And that's a fun place to be, but kind of like I didn't have a lot of focus in my life.
How old were you at this point?
Let's see, a couple years at SOU, and so I was probably, 21, 20, 22, right in there. And I ended up taking a job here at Eagle Point Golf Course, which at the time was the place to be. It was like perfect condition. It still is the place to be here in Southern Oregon. It's awesome. The conditions at the time, it was new build, Monte. It was just crazy perfect. The first time I had been exposed to a facility like that was so brand new. And I ended up getting a job there in the golf shop, just so I could play free golf over the summer before I figured out what I was going to do. I think my plan was to go back to school. And ended up what happening is I had my first kid, Patrick Jr. And so my priorities changed so fast. They were, I had this vision of what I was going to do, but here I am in like a very low paid seasonal assistant, just really doing it for the golf, to, gosh, I'm going to have a kid here in 9 months. I need to do something about that. So I worked really hard in the golf shop. Like I love people, and like when you put me behind the counter, I just absolutely thrive. I get energized when I'm there. My battery might start low, but it just goes up throughout the day, not the other way around. And so I provided what I think is I've always felt like I tried to strive for unreasonable hospitality and wow and surprise folks. And it's not because, it's like a gimmick. It's just because I enjoy it. We're in a service industry and I take that to heart. And so I became like a full-time assistant and still not making much. But that's when I realized like all this passion I've poured into playing and early on the Golf Channel and like learning on my own, I can teach and coach the game. And in fact, when I teach and coach the game, it's a great way to supplement my income. At the time, I was working the open to close shift pretty regularly, and then teaching on my days.
Well, O to C for those not in the business, it's O to C or what is it? Open to dark 30.
Yeah, dark to dark. Yeah, and I realized like, oh gosh, so I can teach after my shift. I can teach on my days off, and that's how I made it. I did that for many years. Without getting too far into the weeds, Jeremy Dunkeson, great pro from NorCal who came up to Eagle Point. He taught me so much he was at Coda de Casa Country Club for many years. Then he went to Shasta Resort and then to Eagle Point. And he taught me so many wonderful lessons about tournament operations. And that's when he's like, you have to get into the program. And that's when I did. I became an associate. And or an apprentice at the time, And I learned so much from him. And unfortunately, that golf course was privately owned, and he and the owner didn't see eye to eye on something, and they fired him. And the owner looked right into my face, and she said, "Can you do what Jeremy did? Can you run this place?" And I had no business saying yes, but I said, put me in the seat. I'll do it. And so I became a very young apprentice head professional. And I've got a newborn at home. Like I am like the epitome of I don't know what's going on, but I'll work hard and I'll figure it out. And I did.
Those are two very, very deep end experiences to have at the same time.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so this is where when you have a bunch of people have all seen those people where they spin plates and they start spinning more plates, or people who juggle a lot. I had a lot of plates spinning, and there's at some point you're not going to be successful at adding more plates. Plates are going to fall. And so for me, I'm not going to, not provide for my family. I'm going to make sure I have a steady paycheck coming in. So the thing I chose to let go by the wayside was my pursuit of membership. And that plate fell. And I said, well, I'm a head professional. Again, my naivete. I've got the job. I'm not paid well. I'm paid like under 30K a year. Like really rough because, it's just the way it was at the time. I don't need this membership. I would love to have it. Maybe I'll revisit it, but it wasn't a priority. It was so low on the list. Had all these other things going on. And that's when Norm Blandell came into my life. He had moved into the area, into the Eagle Point golf community, master professional, and kind of like the professionals before him, made me feel like I mattered. Didn't make me feel less than. I shared with him that my acceptable progress is way off track, and this isn't quite working out like I thought. And he never made me feel bad about where I was. It was always like, well, what can you do to get back in? I always kept it on the positive and was always supportive, and made me start to believe in myself, and then also made me understand what I was missing out on. The networking, the familial way that the PGA of America is, and our Oregon chapter professionals in our section.
The fraternal sport, if you actually ask for help, you'll actually get it.
Totally. And I didn't know what I was missing out on. So he was very supportive, and he said, just kind of like at Oregon State when I wasn't an impact player. I did that on my own accord, but I needed some helping along the way. Like literally I just needed someone to say, you can do this. And I remember getting back in there, and I was so far behind. And I learned this recently, Monte, at the mentoring conference. Denise Taylor had started with the section. She said, you were one of my first calls. And I remember talking to you. I don't remember this conversation. And she said, you were not totally committed at the time. And, I thank her for, it was actually a pretty touching moment to understand how much Denise cared and reached out to me. So I have all these people saying, hey, you can do it. You can do it. Denise and Norm being two of them. And I remember saying to myself, listen, I've just got to set aside some time and do this. So Sunday morning was a time that it was a day off. I wouldn't disrupt, my family time, which was very limited. And I was going to be early morning coffee and my book work. And I just started that way. And that really unlocked that to me, that is the hack. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be all at once. In fact, you'll probably fail just like any diet or anything massive. If you try to do it all at once, you're not going to keep it up. But for me, once a week was enough, and it wasn't overwhelming. And sometimes I was there for 45 minutes. Sometimes I was there for 2.5 hours. I just stayed committed to that once a week approach. And I was amazed at how much I flew through the program. And at this point, I am so far behind that I'm going to I'm in a situation that I hope no one ever has to be in. If you're an associate on the call, I really hope this never happens to you, where you either have to complete it by this date or you're starting over. And that is a terrible place to be. It is a terrible place to be. But that's where I was. So I got it done. Another thing I'm really proud of, I'm not proud of, no one's ever proud of like falling behind. Like that doesn't feel good. But again, I'm really happy with the way I dealt with it. I embraced it and I recovered and I got through. And so I remember in 2013, in 2008, a lot of stuff happened at that golf course. Monte went into receivership. Management companies came in to help the banks sell the golf course. Here I am, the head professional, not knowing what to do, a lot of uncertainty. And another private owner came in and bought the golf course. The Hire family came in and bought the golf course. They kept a management company on, Touchstone Golf, and they looked to have kind of a general manager at each facility. And they, I don't know why they believed in me, but they did. And they said, Patrick, can you do this? And I had no business saying yes, but I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I got a pay increase, which still wasn't good, but I got a pay increase from where I was. And now, like, I'm going to oversee the restaurant. I'm going to oversee the maintenance department. And I'm, young. This is 2013, new owner. And I remember just looking back on my career, being uncomfortable and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is a theme. And that is a thing that I've tried to hold to my heart my whole life, is when something feels uncomfortable or you feel like you're going to stretch or go beyond what you know. Sometimes just throwing yourself in it and saying, I believe in myself and my ability to learn. I'm going to go for it. And so, as the general manager, I remember in 2018, I finally got my membership, and all the members and the owners had this big banner printed for me, said, congratulations. They put it up in the breezeway, and everyone was so happy that I completed my membership. And so from where I was, kind of like, I don't care, to getting that membership, I celebrated with the owners and Norm, and I wish I would have shared it with Denise. I just didn't remember. But that was a big day for me, and a day that, like, I am so proud of. And for any associates that are listening to this, the grind is real. I get it. We all get it. The grind is very, very hard. But the feeling you get when you become a member is absolutely untouchable. It's amazing. And so that's how it happened to me. That's when I became a member, even though I had been an associate for about as long as you could be, without them like kicking me out.
Without being Billy
Yeah,
Bomar.
I it was a cool thing, and that was a whole nother learning arc for me, Monty. Head professional to a general manager with a management company. It was like the learning curve was massive. Thank goodness for that regional manager at that management company for having patience with me. And, honestly, sometimes we had some really hard conversations where I was failing and they were setting some expectations, but it wasn't like execute a good tournament. It wasn't check people in great. It was like, you need to influence the business today. What are you going to do to change the direction and course of these financials? Because if you don't, we'll get rid of you. You need to do this. And that is a whole different scenario. So I really learned what it meant to be a leader and how to inspire people and how to bring them along with you and what it means to be a team and how to really shape the direction and course of a business, and how to get into the weeds with, sometimes it's like, hey, the keg's not cold enough, the beer's pouring too foamy. Sometimes it's, the carts aren't, lined up great. Can we, align these carts so it looks more tight? We want to, let's pyramid the golf balls on the range for every tournament because no one else is, like you do a lot of management by walking around, and it is so much fun. And I absolutely learned so much being a general manager at that golf course. And it's one of the skills that I have now that I am so happy I have, because I get to, as a player engagement consultant, I get to flex those muscles sometimes and share it with my colleagues because it can help them. Like, I think I know a lot of coaches, people who are passionate about it. They're passionate about people. They're passionate about teaching the game. And sometimes they just don't have that business outlook because they are a business, and you need to run yourself as such, because you can't continue to keep up this clip of, teaching from dark to dark. Let's talk about some of these modern coaching principles. So like when I get a chance to kind of work with my fellow professional now, that's what I bring to the table. And it feels really, really good when I can pass along some of those lessons.
Yeah, I think you remind me of what Jim Maypother shared the other day. You and I were both in the room, and he shared this quote, sort of, I've met many professionals who can really teach, but they have no idea how to manage, run, promote, get paid for their business. What makes them great is also their greatest weakness, right? They're great people. They're great with people, and they have so much fun doing that, but they've kind of missed the boat on. I mean, I was thinking as you were speaking, I was listening intently to what you were saying, but at the same time, I was also thinking about the executive chef at Omar's who had a stake in the business. And therefore, that's why you were using the carrot peels instead of just chucking them. And maybe that's one thing too, probably I think you would agree with, is that's maybe one of the things that I think the MCOs, management companies, maybe don't truly understand, is that they did utilize your passion and your ability, and they were holding your feet to the fire to be influential in the business, but they didn't give you enough stake in it. I think that's one of the areas where I always think, I know what you were being paid at Eagle Point, because you told me and you trusted me with that, which I appreciate as your career consultant. But at the same time, the interesting part was like, they're actually getting a lot out of that. They're getting they're lucky to have you. And if they went and took that money and plugged it into somebody else, they're going to give up that impact player. Actually, they're going to get somebody that, frankly, they deserve. And I just think it's one of my many soapboxes where it's like, you got to value this person. And the sad part is you often don't know how valuable somebody is until they're gone. And I haven't talked to Bob Heyer in a long time. He's a very nice man. Probably when he bought a golf course, I don't think he fully realized what he was actually buying. It's kind of an interesting thing there, but but I know for a fact that he probably was. I regret letting Patrick Oropallo not fighting to keep him here. I would say that if he didn't, I'd frankly be disappointed in him.
Well, I think, I had, from where I was to where I ended up, like the team and we were able to turn that business around from, EBITDA being terrible and losing money year over year for many years because it was simply a side thing for the previous owner, to now we were making money every year. And golf is not booming. This is 2015, 16, 14, 15, 16, and we turned it around totally. The net from operations was above 100K. Like, there were some things that we won Touchstone Golf's Facility of the Year because we had grown membership from 60 to 330. And so I really was a part of like rebranding a restaurant, like growing a business. And that made me I was a good general manager for sure. And I wasn't paid commensurately with my learning curve, so that was part of it, Monte. But as you know, I got to go back to run that municipal 9-hole golf course for a community that I loved. And I was doing some of my very best work there. They just couldn't afford to water the golf course when we went through the massive drought. And for any of you that know me, I can't, in an operations role, for those that know me, I have a growth mindset, and I cannot just lay it up every day and open the doors and have no one come through. It just hurts me. So that's why I left and got to become a full-time golf coach. And that was an incredible thing.
Especially when you think about you're finding the game at Oak Knoll, to have that place not be, I can imagine every day you went there before the water issue, you went there every day I'm going to find more Patricks and more Patricias in the world. I'm going to make them feel welcome. And you were doing that. And unfortunately you basically the golf course had a production problem. Your sales and development, business development, and you had a production problem, and you saw it coming. It actually didn't happen. I remember the conversation you had with me, and it wasn't summer yet. You saw it coming. You saw that there was going to be an issue, and I've got to pivot because in so many words, paraphrase, I don't want to be part of sort of a death spiral.
100%. It was,
I love your growth mindset. I want to be in an organization where we're elevating, we're going up, not, but actually, if you think about it, all of those interesting sort of transitions from Eagle Point, there was enough feeling of not feeling valued enough, and you were appropriate to feel that way, to go to, be an employee of Ashland, running Oak Knoll. And that was an improvement on your bottom line too. Compensation.
Yeah, I did great. We more than doubled gross revenue. Like, I just let that sit for a minute. The total gross revenue was this, and we more than doubled it through throwing concerts. I threw everything in the tool shed at this municipal 9. I think maybe those of you heard me say I did some of my best work at this place, and the community support was incredible. It was the most fun job I've ever had in my career. And if it weren't for that drought, I would definitely still be there. I just couldn't get past the fact, with the wild financial success, that the stakeholders at the city didn't see the potential that I saw, and they weren't willing to see it go through. I mean, honestly, they couldn't afford it. So their hands were tied a little bit. So it was a really kind of sad parting of ways. The golf course has since recovered. And if you're ever in Ashland, take in a great Shakespeare play, enjoy the wonderful restaurants and wineries, and go play Oak Knoll. Don't miss out on it. It's almost 100 years old. It'll be 100 years old here in another 3 years. So go check it out. But at the time, it just was really hurtful because it was so financially successful and it was becoming a gem of the community again. And we're going to just sweep the feet out from under it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. So one of the things that, again, go back to the OSU assistant coach saying not a non-impact player, and I know huge impact. You see with some good mentoring and some I believe in you, you can get this done kind of stuff. But at Eagle Point, and then you became a huge impact player at the place you learned the game, and you would still be there today. And then you sort of went out and learned how to teach and coach professionally to make a living because you had to. It's the only option. And now you're the player engagement consultant, and I got to be part of sort of finding and getting to be part of bring you into the PGA of America. And you're an impact player for sure on the player engagement consultant team. Always proud of hearing your stories and wins and the way you impact the professionals in both the Southwest PGA and the Pacific Northwest PGA. And I think Norm is probably more proud of you than I am, but I'm right behind him in that sort of impact to see you there. So my last question for you, I know you've got to run pretty soon here, is what are you looking forward to in the next calendar year? What's that going to look like? Besides enjoying your every single day you get to spend with Tanel. Besides that, besides that, what's career-wise, what are you excited about?
Every year I kind of do a personal SWOT analysis. I look back at what worked, what didn't work, and where are the opportunities, and not necessarily with like the key business drivers that I'm responsible for. That's a given, but just like personally for myself. So like I really am looking forward to continuing to learn more. I try to be a sponge, and it's one of the things I went from almost being terminated from being the PGA member to I'm a member. I'm specialized in two categories. I'm certified in one, and I'm pursuing master. That's simply a growth mindset and a commitment to lifelong learning that Norm has instilled in me. You have instilled in me. Dominic Marconi has instilled in me. People that are key in my career. So I look forward to continuing to sharpen my saw and think critically. And I really am committed to being kind of more physically fit. I'm committed to continuing to cook delicious foods. I'm about to start learning how to make different charcuterie and sausage from scratch. So that's an area I'm looking. So I'm always just kind of
that may be in future social
you'll be the benefactor for sure. So I think just continuing to learn and because it better equips me to react and support the members and associates that I care deeply about. And this because you're a career consultant, Monte. And now that I've been a player engagement consultant for 3 years, I can agree that when you are a part of behind the scenes, helping somebody, supporting somebody, see them win, it feels just absolutely amazing. And so all these efforts to sharpen my saw and learn more and think critically and be better for me, it's all in an effort to be better for someone else and support them better. And so that's what I'm looking forward to in 2026. And I don't see it changing for the foreseeable future.
That's the beauty of it is that the only downside is when you help someone find great success, they get really busy, and it's awesome, and their business book of business grows, their wallet or purse grows, and it's great to see. But then they don't need you. It feels like, and so all that work in the relationship development, it doesn't get set aside, and it's not like it never happened. It's just, and there's always someone else to help and to lean into, who might need help in the recovery phase, might need help becoming an impact player. So yeah, it's just a different face, but it's the same heart for service. So again, thanks for making the time. Super proud of the golf professional and leader you have become, and you are becoming, and I look forward to seeing what you do, and who knows, maybe someday somebody might give me a new role that I love as much, and then you'll be the career consultant, which You kind of are already, and I think we make a good team that way too. So I know you're coaching people in their careers all the time, just like I did when I was in player dev. Because again, it's the same. Just want to make an impact, and again, that's the word of the day for me. Talking to you is Patrick Oropallo is anything but a non-impact player.